Moin, ihr wunderbare Menschen des Interwebs. Ich begrüße euch ganz herzlich zurück zu meinem Let's Play von The Great Ace-Attorney Chronicles. Wir sind bei der Zeugenaussage The Inspector and the Identification Visited. Die werden wir uns jetzt einmal anhören und gucken, was denn Gossip zu sagen hat. The man who claimed to be an inspector that day was definitely not this man. It's right, see, you think we would have forgot these grand lips, huh? I never leave Fresno Street, alright? I have no interest in any red-headed leak. I'm all alone in the world. Me, I've no kinfolk or nothing. Why would I be involved in something like that? Just look at me. Does it look like I could carry off a disguise with a face like this? It would certainly appear that we have the wrong man. What have I been telling you, huh? There was no need for this pointless testimony. That's right, I'm just a simple peddler, remember? Fresno Street is all I know. How would I have come by a police inspector's identification book, huh? Well, yes, that's hard to explain, but... A brief cross-examination, I think, counsel, very brief. Isn't there anyone in this courtroom who thinks I might be onto something? I stand steadfastly at your side, as always, Mr. Naruhodo. Okay. The man who claimed to be an inspector that day was definitely not this man. Damit kann ich jetzt nicht so viel anfangen. That's right, see, I think we would have forgot these grand lips. Kann ich auch nicht viel anfangen. I never leave Fresno Street, alright? I have no interest in red-headed league. Okay, das ist interessant, weil woher weiß er denn von der red-headed league? So, you'd heard of the red-headed league, had you? You don't get a name like Gossip for nothing, eh? It's my business to know what's going off in town. I sold that tasty tidbit to fair new redheads that came past me. Just between us, I've even got Sandwich to cop for it. Well, he must have a very red nose if that counts. Nose. But as you can see, my own hair has not got a hint of red in it. And in any case, Fresno Street's my patch. You won't catch me sliding off to some other part of town. No, sir, not likely. Mr. Russo. Can I help you? Did Mr. Gossip's words just now lead you to remember something relevant, perhaps? It was the other day when I was looking for a place near the park, a small house or something. To be the headquarters of your red-headed league, yes. I visited an housing agent on Line Street and there I saw him. This man was paying money to the agent. What? Mr. Gossip with a housing agent? Oh, he had some kind of contract in, and they were clearly discussing terms. But no, you're mistaken, chum. I've never left Fresno Street, like I said before. Mistaking me for someone else, someone with the same face. No, the cap was right, I remember it too. He was paying the man with the banknotes. With notes. Like I said, that wasn't me. I was curious why this man with the dirty clothes had so much money. So I looked at the name on the papers. And what name was written? The Gossip. No, this man, he lies. He tells you that he has no name. But in fact, his name is Hugh Bowen, eh? It's better than Mr. Gossip, I think. Hugh Bowen, das ist der Name von dem Verschluck, wo Gregson Leiche gefunden wurde. I'm a peddler of tidbits of information, like I said, on Fresno Street, and that's it. I don't much like folk talking about my personal life. Indeed, and it is not the intention of the court to invade the privacy of witnesses. Very well, I shall respect your wishes, sir. The aforementioned name shall be redacted from all court records of this trial, assuming objections. Ja, ich hab da einen Einspruch. I am sorry, my lord, but the defense does object. Because the name just mentioned has a very deep significance to this case. Good gracious, do you similarly object, Prosecutor Sogi? As it happens, my lord, that particular name has already been mentioned during today's proceedings. In what capacity? You Bone, the name of the leaseholder of the room. Let me put this very simply. The victim's body was discovered in your rented room. I suggest, sir, that you start talking. Well, alright. I suppose that might be the case, aye. So your real name is Bone. Well, just between us, I don't like to blow my own trumpet, but there is no finer peddler of tidbits in town. So I happen to be able to afford a grubbly little room in a falling down backstreet townhouse. And once every 6 months I go and pay the rent to the agent on Lime Street. I remember now, there were 2 vulgar red hats in there last time. If either of us is vulgar is not to me. Think again, Pepino. Why didn't you bring this up before? Like I told you already, I don't like talking about my personal life. I'm a tidbit peddler as far as everyone else is concerned. No fuss. You will update your testimony to include this surprising revelation, Mr. Bone. If I must. So the leaseholder Scotland Yard has been looking for since the body was discovered has been here under our noses all along. Okay, I rent the room where that fella was found. It's true. For what differences it makes. Oh, whoops. I'm all alone in the world, me. I have no kinfolk or nothing. Why would I be involved? Okay. Okay, lass mich mal kurz nachdenken. Also er soll jetzt eigentlich jemand sein, der nur auf der Straße ist und Informationen verkauft. Er hat aber viel Geld oder er hat einiges an Geld zur Verfügung. Und der Raum, der sah, ja, aber das sah ja wirklich aus wie so eine Undercover-Basis von Gregson. Oder oder war das nicht von Greg? Aber dann müsste er doch eigentlich ein wichtigerer Mensch sein. Also eine wichtigere Person. Wisst ihr was? Ich lehne mich jetzt mal richtig weit aus dem Fenster. I'm all alone in the world, me. I have no kinfolk or nothing. Why would I be involved in something like that? Ich lehne mich jetzt mal sehr, sehr weit aus dem Fenster. Ich behaupte, dass er das ist. Ich behaupte jetzt mal, dass das da, der guter Gossip, Mr. Vigil ist. Und weil wir in diesem Versteck haben wir dann ein Fotograf von Mrs. Vigil. Mrs. Vigil hat gesagt, dass ihr Mann gefunden ist. Aber was ich jetzt immer noch nicht verstehe, was er dann da gemacht hat. Entweder er hat mit Gregson gearbeitet, an irgendwas, oder Gregson hat ja undercover ermittelt, um mehr über Mr. Vigils Machenschaften rauszufinden. Aber irgendwie würde es doch mehr Sinn machen, dass sie zusammengearbeitet haben, oder? Weil das muss doch... Aber der arbeitet ja auch schon... ist egal, ist egal. Ich habe ganz, ganz viele Fragen. Aber ja, wir machen das jetzt mal hier. Guter Mann. If you have no kinfolk, as you put it, then explain why it is that among the sparse furnishings we found this photograph in the room. I presume, as you've been renting the room, that this photograph belongs to you, does it not? Oh, well... Mr. Bone, drop the pretense and tell the court exactly who you really are. I don't know what you mean. I'm a peddler. I keep telling you so. You really don't need to bother with me. Please, just leave it alone. As the man says, leave it alone. Whatever the truth is about this man's life, it has no bearing in this case. Because it's simply not possible that he impersonated Inspector Gregson. How can you be so sure? Just look at the man. No amount of disguise could ever hide those unmissable features. But what if we were to look at this the other way around? What do you mean? Yes, counsel, what do you mean? Well, there's no denying that Mr. Bones' lip is very prominent indeed. But consider the possibility that his prominent lip is itself a part of his disguise. Ich habe das leider wieder übersprungen, aber ich gehe davon aus, dass Naruhodo jetzt gesagt hat, dass es auch fake ist. Then hiding that prominent feature, in other words, revealing his true face, would make an utterly penetrable disguise. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Q-Bone? Good. Witness, are you still hiding the truth from this court? If that's a disguise, then underneath it, this true identity must be... Yes, that's right. There's really only one person he could really be. My lord, the defense believes it can reveal Mr. Bones' true identity to the court. Very well then, counsel. What is the true identity of this peddler who goes simply by the name of Gossip on the Street? Your real name is actually Mr. Vigil, isn't it? Mr. Daily Vigil. I don't recall that name, counsel. Who is this Mr. Vigil? It's a name I encountered yesterday, my lord. It has to do with a certain client of Mr. Herlock Sholmes. A young gentlewoman came to the detective asking him to locate her missing husband. The woman in this photograph, in fact. This is Mrs. Vigil. From what I understand, you haven't returned home since the night before the inspector was found dead. But of course, on that night, you were being held captive by the two red-headed league men. And last night you were put up by the prosecution service in preparation for testifying in this trial, because we'd been led to believe that you, Miss Venus and Miss Sandwich were all homeless. Being important witnesses in this case, we needed to know where we could find you, of course. And that explains why you've not only been unable to return home, but also unable to contact your wife, who's been beside herself with worry waiting for you at the Vigil residence. Now just you hold a minute. Wait, what I'm talking about, really? It's a simple enough matter to confirm my suspicions. All we have to do is pull off that disguise. No, please. Olive, bring soap, a sponge, and a wash bowl at once. Mr. De Russo and Mr. De Rossi, you will find the witness. Oui, my lord. Si, my lord. We are now seeing you, I presume. Lift your head, sir, so the court can see your face. It would appear that the defense counsel's assertion was entirely correct. It has all been a very elaborate deception. So, witnesses, tell the court. Have you seen this man before? I don't believe it, but... See, there is no question. This is the inspector we saw in the park. On the day of the Red-Headed League enrollment, the man claiming to be Inspector Gregson, who appeared before Mr. DeRusso and Mr. DeRossi in the park, was you, disguised as the inspector, or rather, was you posing as the inspector in no disguise at all. Mr. Rigel was formerly employed as the chief warder at Barclay Prison. Chief warder? Then your career had promise. Why, you would quite possibly have become the future governor of the prison. What on earth have you been doing peddling diddly-daddly on Fresno Street? Well, it's been 10 years since Mr. Rigel worked at the prison. 10 years. I'm really dreadfully sorry about all of this. Yes, it's true. I'm Daily Vigil. You were the chief warder at Barclay Prison 10 years ago. So where did Mr. Bone come from? Bone is the other me. It's a name I invented. Well, evidently there is a great deal under the surface here. I will explain everything. I will tell you just how wretched my life has become. As you say, it was 10 years ago now that my employment as Barclay's chief warder came to an end. Having left the prison service, I searched for some new occupation by which to earn a wage. But times were hard in London, and I found no suitable engagements at all. In desperation one day, I turned my hand at selling wares on Fresno Street. But your wife appears to know nothing of this. He still maintains that you are the chief warder at Barclay Prison. I was utterly determined that my wife should not know of my failings, which is why I've never told her. I opened an account at the bank under the name of Hugh Bone. I rented the cheapest room I could find on Fresno Street. The scene of the very crime we're investigating. Yes, that's right. A place from which I could emerge every morning at 8 as a peddler. And transform myself back every evening at 5 into a well-dressed man about town before returning home. That quickly became my daily routine. I was puzzled by the lack of furniture in the room, but that explains it. But why on earth didn't you just tell us this in the first place? I have a wife, sir, and 2 sons, and without wishing to sound self-conceited, they regard me with some pride. I couldn't bring myself to disappoint them. So instead you decided to conceal your occupation from them? Yes. I have made such a terrible mess of everything. Still, one thing doesn't add up. No matter how many tidbits of information you could sell to passing gentlemen, even at 6p apiece, you couldn't hope to match the salary you must have commanded as chief warder at the prison. Very true. To have kept your family in comfort despite 10 years of somewhat misbegotten employment. That was all thanks to Inspector Gregson. Well, Inspector Gregson, what on earth? It was some years after I'd invented Bone and began my other life as a street seller. He, the inspector that is, recognized me one day. You mean to say the victim was an acquaintance of yours? I knew him from my time working at the prison. When he saw what I'd become, he was deeply troubled for me and my family, and from that day forward he visited me on Fresno Street with increased regularity. Then one day, he asked me if I would carry out a secret assignment for him. A secret... what was it? I was to impersonate the inspector. Impersonate him. We always met in that little room, so the inspector could brief me. Visit Orsi's tomorrow and take a statement from the proprietress. There was always something along those lines. Surveillance work, interviewing people, Those occasions, he would lend me his identification so people would believe who I was. My instructions were to make an impression, to let people know that Inspector Gregson had been at work. And for those services, he compensated me financially. The Scotland Yard inspector willingly relinquished his identification into your care with intent to that, as I'm sure I need not point out, is a very serious criminal offense. But why? What was the point of your impersonating him? I truthfully do not know. All I can say is that the inspector warned me on numerous occasions. Now remember, Vigil, I need your stolen word. You don't blab about this to anyone, alright? Ever. Even if I end up a croaker. In time, he started to bring papers with him to the room as well. It became something of a second office for him. So, in fact, the person who declared himself to be Inspector Gregson at the park on Lime Street was really... Yes, it was me, acting on Inspector's orders. As usual, I removed my phone disguise. Then went as instructed to the park, armed with the Inspector's identification book. It never occurred to me that the bruise on my neck might give me away. Well, it would seem this confession completely destroys the defense's case. Explain yourself, Prosecutor Isogi. My learned friend's assertion was as follows. The victim was killed at another location on the day before his corpse was discovered, at the hands of these two red-headed league men when they imprisoned the inspector. But no, that can't be. After all, it wasn't the inspector who went to the park that day, it was me. Goodness. Finally, we have clarity. He had nothing to do with the murder of the inspector. And merci, Monsieur de la Défense, for proving it. Ja, ich meine, ich habe sowieso nicht dran geglaubt, dass die beiden ihn jetzt umgebracht haben. Indeed, it would appear that we have reached a de facto conclusion of sorts. These witnesses had no involvement in the murder of the victim, as proven somewhat ironically by the defense. I hereby call an end to the cross-examination. Pardon me, my lord, but with your permission, I would like to pose one further question to the witness. What question, counsel? It concerns the events of 10 years ago. I believe you would have been present at a very significant execution that was carried out at the time. 10 years ago. Professor Genshin Isogi. I want to know exactly what your involvement was. Answer me, man. One moment, counsel. Is this related to the current case? Naturally. It is the prosecution's belief that this case and the events of 10 years ago are inextricably linked. Does the defense concur, counsel? Azuma, not yourself. You're not as calm and collected as usual. Azuma-sama, no wonder he's acting that way. The Vigil's memories of what happened 10 years ago would tell the tale of Genshin Isogi's last moments. Own father. I know. I do understand that, but even though... Kazu, Prosecutor Isogi, do you genuinely believe that this question requires an answer in order to learn the truth behind Inspector Gregson's death? I need you to trust me. please. Very well. Then the defense has no objection. I see. In that case, you will answer the question, witness. The truth is, I remember very little of that time. You've forgotten. I am sorry to say yes. As I said, I resigned from my role at the prison 10 years ago. But for some peculiar reason, my memory of the events leading up to that moment is extremely hazy. Does that not strike you as strange, Mr. Naruhodo? Sorry. Well, 10 years is a long time. I've forgotten the reason why he left such an important job. Yes, you're right. And not only that. The Vigil's claim contradicts what we already know. The human spirit is a fragile thing, it's broken all too easily, which is why we have a tendency to rub it up for protection. Sorry, the spirit. I'm afraid I don't understand what you mean. When we experience pain and suffering that we feel unable to bear, we block it out, obliterate it from our memories, seal it away. But it never truly leaves us. If the seal is broken, the memories resurface, and when they do, that fragile spirit may finally be crushed. But I really don't... Osama? But if it must be crushed, then so be it, because the truth will not stay buried, it's coming out in one way or another. Right, now I understand. Clear what his intentions are. He means to expose the truth, at any cost. Perhaps if I pointed out the contradiction and what Mr. claimed earlier, might cause some crucial memories to return to him. But should I? Should I present the evidence or not? I have no idea how this is going to go, but this is a court of law. I have a duty to do the truth. Mr. Vigil, I would like you to look at this. Evidence that clearly contradicts your version of events. Just a few moments ago, you made the following statement. I resigned from my role at the prison 10 years ago. Well, yes. In other words, you claim to have left the post of chief warder of your own volition. Well, yes, of course. Why? Tell me, do you remember seeing this document before? No, I don't. This is a dismissal notice ordering the immediate termination of a prison staff member's employment. And the name on the notice is yours, Mr. Vigil. So you didn't resign from the prison service at all. For some reason, you were dismissed as order from Berkeley. No, there's been some mistake. I'm sure. I'm sure I tendered my resignation. This dismissal notice is nonsense. You were forcibly dismissed. There must have been good reason. Clearly, you did something. Mr. Vigil, it's time to break the seal and have you remember. According to the few remaining records, the final execution as you supervised was on 10 years ago, and on that day something very serious took place at Berkeley Prison. Was that the professor's execution? As you were the chief warder at the time, it stands to reason that you would have been present throughout the proceedings. And yet, that execution never took place. The convict, ostensibly executed earlier that day, later re-emerged from his grave. The convict came back to life? In the cemetery in the middle of the night, there was a witness. However, the witness claims that a moment after he saw the convict clambering out of his grave, a gunshot rang out from over his shoulder, and the bullet pierced the professor's chest, killing him instantly. Those may have been the professor's actual last moments. Being as you were in charge of overseeing executions at the time, you must know the truth about what really happened. It's in your head, somewhere deep down. Well, Order Daily Vigil, I know there are memories in your head that can explain what happened on 17th June 10 years ago. And now it's time for you to direct them up. Mr. Vigil? The prisoner escaped, was killed in the cemetery. The shocking news ripped through Barclay like a hurricane. Do you mean to say, Mr. Vigil, that your memories of the time have returned? Like some floodgates have been opened. Images. Screams. The papers. There were reports, articles about a man who's a ghost. Yes, Anna Drebber. But surely those reports were exaggerated. There were traces at the scene. Traces of what? In Lowgate Cemetery, at plot number 139. Blood, lots of blood. That's where the man was buried, of course. Obviously, something terribly had happened there. The deaths of conspiracy and depravity from which I have reviewed the police records from that time extensively. A saw-through investigation was conducted by Scotland Yard, certain how the convict managed to escape in the first place. And the conclusion reached by the investigating team was that a member of the prison staff must have been involved. Are you suggesting that a prison warder abetted the man's bid for freedom? I remember now. The horror of it all is coming back to me. One evening, a few days after the execution, some detectives came to the prison. I was called to the governor's office at the top of the watchtower. I am sorry, Daly, this is a serious business, but can I help you now? As chief warder, you were responsible for overseeing the execution afore. Well, it seems the fellows at Scotland Yard want to have a few wee words with you about it. You'd better pack your things, laddie. You're to attend in person. As soon as he told me that, my mind just went completely blank. And the next thing I knew, The professor, the most hated killer in our country's history. And I let him escape. I'm finished. My life. It's over. Court is adjourned for today with immediate effect.
見てるもん氏は意識を失い、その日の審理は中断された。またしても呪いのように浮かび上がる殺人鬼の影。バンジークス卿、見てるもん氏、アソーギ、そしてグレグソン刑事。彼らを縛りつける重い鎖は過去からの闇を引きずっている。そこに光をもたらす奇跡はもうそこまで迫っていた。
To be continued. Also, ich bin nach wie vor extrem verwirrt, aber mein Gestammel vorher, irgendwo, in der Mitte von dem Part, glaube ich, war das, ein bisschen was ergibt jetzt, also ein paar Fragen wurden das beantwortet. Also, dass Grex und Vigil zusammengearbeitet haben, okay, das wurde jetzt. Aber was ich immer noch nicht ganz verstehe, ist, oder was ich auch noch gar nicht verstehen kann, weil er hat es ja jetzt noch nicht wirklich gesagt. Also er hat jetzt nur gesagt, er wurde verdächtigt, dem Professor bei der Flucht geholfen zu haben. Ist Punkt A. Hat er ihm bei der Flucht geholfen? Punkt B. Wieso wurde denn der Professor dann wirklich beerdigt? Kam dann wieder aus dem Grab raus. Warum hat, ich glaube, Seif war das doch, oder? Die ihn erschossen haben soll. Wieso hat Seif ihn dann erschossen? Also, ich habe halt, was ich jetzt, das ist jetzt wirklich eine sehr, sehr weit hergeholte Theorie und kann komplett falsch sein, ja. Ich mag das nur so komplett crazy Sachen in meinem Kopf zu spinnen, auch wenn die wahrscheinlich so absolut gar keinen Sinn ergeben und so komplett unrealistisch sind. Werde ich das jetzt trotzdem mal sagen. Was ist, wenn man dem Professor tatsächlich zu geholfen hat, jemand anderes anstelle vom und dieser Professor immer noch Leben ist? Sehr unrealistisch, ich weiß. Aber was wäre, wenn? Weil er wurde ja zwar dann erschossen, aber man hat ja nie wieder unter diese Maske geguckt, oder? Also du hast ja nie wieder das Gesicht von ihm dann gesehen. Obwohl, nee, stimmt nicht, nein, stimmt, kann gar nicht stimmen. Das kann gar nicht stimmen. Er muss tot sein, weil ja Madame Bells hat ja hier so einen Abdruck von seinem Gesicht genommen. Das heißt, stimmt, der Professor kann gar nicht mehr am Leben. Okay, Theorie hat sich schon wieder erledigt. Aber was ich halt, er ist entkommen, aber wurde dann irgendwie lebendig beerdigt und kam dann wieder in der Nacht aus seinem Grabe raus. Also, mir fehlt noch dieser Punkt, wie ist er entkommen? Also, wie ist er denn, wie hat er ihm geholfen? Und warum wurde er dann trotzdem noch beerdigt? Das ist irgendwie, raff ich gerade irgendwie noch. Vielleicht stehe ich auch nur auf dem Schlauch. Eventuell gab es da schon ein bisschen mehr Hinweise. Aber jetzt, so momentan, wie es aussieht, habe ich da noch keinen Plan, wie es zustande gekommen ist. Also ich bin sehr, sehr gespannt, wie das weitergeht. Hoffe, dass aufgeklärt wird. Weil für mich ist da momentan nach wie vor sehr, sehr schwer, diese Dots zu connecten. Also diese ganzen Punkte miteinander zu verbinden und den Zusammenhang. Ich glaube auch immer noch, dass wirklich erst im letzten Fall das dann alles so einen Sinn macht und ich dann so diesen Aha-Moment wahrscheinlich bekomme, aber müssen wir mal gucken. Hier gibt es jetzt auf jeden Fall erstmal einen Cut. Es im nächsten Part weiter entweder mit der Verhandlung oder mit weiteren Untersuchungen. Müssen wir mal gucken. Ich bedanke mich auf jeden Fall ganz herzlich fürs Zusehen. Hoffe, ihr hattet Spaß. Und wenn ihr mögt, sehen wir uns sehr, sehr gerne im nächsten Part wieder. Bis dahin. Ciao.